This is our second screencast for week number 3, and we're looking at Chapter 8, Psychosocial Disparities Faced by Women with Physical Disabilities. One of the largest and most disadvantaged populations in the United States are women. Only a small fraction of research on disability topics is dedicated to their concerns. The purpose of this chapter is to help rehabilitation counselors and professionals understand the myriad of factors that affect the psychological and social health of women with disabilities. Disability and rehab research increases after period of war, and such has focused on men. Research related to women with chronic illness and disability has been limited to fertility and sexuality. Research into health and wellness in the context of disability is relatively new. 12 to 21% of U.S. women have a disability. Women with disabilities less likely to be married, more likely to be living alone, more likely to have high school education or less likely to have private health insurance. Women with disabilities more likely to see specialists, delay getting care due to cost, unable to get care for general medical conditions or surgery, mental health, dental needs, or prescriptions. Women with disabilities have poor overall health with increased hypertension levels or higher blood pressure, depression, stress, smoking, and are more often overweight or obese. Women aged 16 to 64 are nearly 2.5 times more likely to live in poverty than their counterparts without disability. They experience low wages, economic segregation, restricted career opportunities, may be unable to maintain jobs due to some chronic health and disabilities with unpredictable symptom presentation. So, understanding health in the context of disability for women. There's been considerable discussion of the disability relevance of health and wellness models that include biological, psychological, social, and spiritual elements. After putting these together, working with other researchers, and studying independent living and feminism, the textbook authors convinced that there's not been enough attention placed on context, particularly for women. Context is not only the environment, but the entirety of a woman's past experience and current living situation in the patriarchal society. The textbook author, or the chapter author, is a long-term student of Eastern philosophy and religion. This individual believes that spirituality is not just one part of the analytical model, it is the whole thing. The textbook's author, or the chapter's author, has now begun to teach the model shown here using a tetrahedron, a three-sided pyramid, as a visual aid. The visible faces represent an equal measure of the biological, psychological, and social elements of being. Without any one of them, the integrity of the structure cannot be maintained. The part that is not visible is the base of the tetrahedron, which represents context. Without considering that element, it is impossible to understand why women with disabilities experience such extreme health disparities. The entire structure, including the base and all that surrounds it, is a manifestation of spirituality, or as some would prefer to phrase it, the feeling of essence or connection with a higher power. Looking at self-esteem plays a central role in the psychological well-being of persons with functional limitations. Self-worth may be comprised by internalizing the devaluation that society tends to assign physical impairment. Positive self-esteem is fundamental to psychological and social well-being. It's defined as a comparison between the accomplishments and hope and a personal awareness and recognition of all of one's being. The effect of interpersonal feedback and the environment is a link to a sense of belongingness, societal contribution, and gaining approval from significant others. People with disabilities must continually cope with assaults to their self-esteem by negative societal attitudes. Now, looking at social connectedness. Intimate relationships and other sources of connectedness and support may offer people with disabilities an important validation of self-worth. Social isolation has been strongly associated with health problems and mortality. Relationships provide positive social support that serves important functions for the well-being of people with physical disabilities. From research, women have shared how they long for and benefit from opportunities to develop caring relationships with one another, to heal their shared multiple losses, and to strive for optimal wellness. Women with physically disabling conditions may benefit from resources of supportive relationships. Unfortunately, women with disabilities were safe targets for abuse due to the fact that they were considered less likely to fight back or were less likely to be believed. Abuse can consist of physical, sexual, emotional violence, also destruction of medical equipment, physical neglect, financial abuse, and the stealing of medication. A screening tool, the Abuse Assessment Screen/disability, is recommended for counselors to use to assess their clientele. Stress. Women in the general population report higher levels of perceived stress than their male counterparts. Women with physical disabilities are at an increased risk for experiencing stress and its negative health consequences. Stress reflects the extent to which individuals perceive their lives to be unpredictable, uncontrollable, and overloading. The impact on a female with a disability may be more severe due to their physical and/or psychological status. Hypertension, chronic pain, IBS, arthritis are all associated with higher levels of stress. Finally, depression. Women are twice as likely to experience depression as men. Women with disabilities may experience disproportionately higher rates of depression. Women in rural settings may face greater barriers to accessing mental health services. So this was just a quick overview of looking at women with disabilities and some of the concepts that one should be aware of when working with an individual with chronic illness and disability.